There is something that happens when a person becomes famous. The world rushes in and builds a version of them. A version made of highlight reels, award speeches, sold-out shows, and carefully framed photographs. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, the real person quietly disappears behind the image. Jelly Roll is one of the most talked about artists of this generation. His story of redemption, pain, and transformation has moved millions of people. Fans feel like they know him. They have listened to every lyric, watched every interview, and followed every chapter of his rise. But there is one person who has seen something the rest of the world never got access to. Not the performer, not the public figure, not the redemption arc carefully packaged for social media. That person is Bunnie Xo. And what she has witnessed over the years is a story that no camera ever fully captured. Before anyone called her Jelly Roll's wife, before the podcast appearances and the red carpets and the magazine features, Bunnie Xo was already doing the hard work of building something real on her own terms. She was born Elisa DeFord in 1980. She did not grow up with industry connections or a family name that opened doors. What she had was a voice, a personality, and a willingness to be honest in a world that usually rewards people for being careful. She started building her audience on YouTube, and from the very beginning, people responded to her because she was not performing. She was not trying to fit into some polished influencer mold. She was just herself, talking directly to whoever was watching, and that rawness drew people in. Then in 2019, she launched the Dumb Blonde podcast, and what could have easily been just another celebrity interview show became something much more meaningful. The guests came from every corner of life: musicians, writers, public figures, online personalities, people from backgrounds most mainstream media never bothered to look at. But what made Bunnie's interviews different from everything else on the market was not who she booked. It was how she talked to them. She did not stick to safe questions. She did not let people hide behind polished answers. She leaned into the uncomfortable parts of every story, the painful chapters, the things people usually protect themselves from saying out loud. And because she created that kind of space, her guests opened up in ways that felt rare and genuine. Week after week, people sat across from her microphone and told the truth. About failure, about love falling apart, about addiction and regret and unexpected grace. Some stories were inspiring, some were heartbreaking, but all of them felt real. And through those conversations, Bunnie built something that most interviewers spend their entire careers chasing. She built trust. People believed that she understood them, and they were right. But even with all those powerful stories surrounding her, the most personal story was still waiting just around the corner. It was not about a celebrity guest. It was not about a viral moment or a controversial episode. It was about a man she would meet in a city built on chances at a moment when neither of them could have known what was coming next. The year was 2015. The city was Las Vegas. At that time, Jelly Roll was not the figure the world knows today. He was not selling out arenas. He was not collecting awards or giving acceptance speeches that made people cry. He was grinding, playing shows, chasing something, trying to keep his music alive while the industry kept its doors mostly closed to him. Bunnie attended one of his concerts that night. After the show, they were introduced. And from the very first conversation, there was something between them that felt different from ordinary small talk. Easy, natural, like they had already figured something out about each other without needing to explain it. But the timing was not right. Bunnie was still in another relationship, so they went their separate ways. They did not chase it. They did not force it, but the impression stayed. Not long after that night, Bunnie's relationship ended. And slowly, without pressure or performance, the connection between her and Jelly Roll started to grow. What had begun as friendship began to shift into something deeper, something more personal. Jelly Roll later joked, more than once, that Bunnie was the one who made the first move. He said it with a smile, the way people do when a story has a happy ending. But underneath the humor was something true. What developed between them was not manufactured. It was not based on who he was becoming or what his name would one day mean. It was based on who he was in that moment. And in that moment, he was struggling. He was living out of a van. He was chasing a dream that most people around him probably thought was unrealistic. He was working through financial pressure and personal instability while trying to hold onto the belief that his music mattered. Bunnie saw all of that clearly, and she did not walk away. She offered him a place to stay while he focused on recording projects in Las Vegas. It was not a grand romantic gesture. It was something much quieter than that. It was someone looking at another person and deciding that they were worth believing in, even when the rest of the world had not caught on yet. That is a kind of faith that does not come from fame or convenience. It comes from something deeper. Their relationship moved quickly, but it never felt rushed. There was no artificial pacing to it, no checklist being followed. By 2016, after about a year together, things had already reached a point that surprised everyone who witnessed it. During one of his live performances in Las Vegas, Jelly Roll stopped the show and proposed to Bunnie right there on stage, in front of the crowd, under the lights, with music still hanging in the air and fans watching in complete shock. It was not the kind of proposal you see in romantic comedies. It was not perfectly orchestrated or cinematic in the conventional sense, but it was completely them, and that made it unforgettable. What happened next showed exactly the kind of people they were. They did not slow down. They did not plan a long engagement or spend months preparing for the perfect wedding. Within hours of the proposal, they were standing inside a courthouse in Las Vegas, saying their vows. No waiting for the right time. No waiting for circumstances to align. Just two people choosing each other immediately and completely. As years passed, life got more complicated. Careers grew. Demands increased. The world started paying attention to Jelly Roll in ways that changed everything around them. But through all of it, their bond held. In 2023, they returned to Las Vegas, the same city where it all began, and they renewed their vows at the same chapel where they had started their life together. It was not a spectacle. It was not designed for public consumption. It was a quiet, powerful moment between two people who had survived real things together and were choosing to honor that. To look at everything they had been through and say, this still means something? What most people watching from the outside never fully understood was that their relationship was never built on fame. It was not built on perfect moments or the kind of love that only looks good in photographs. It was built on shared struggle, deep friendship, loyalty through hard seasons, and a belief in each other that existed long before any of the success arrived. When Jelly Roll's career began to take off in a serious way, the world got a version of him that felt complete. Awards, recognition, sold-out shows, television appearances, a story of redemption that people connected with on a deeply emotional level. But Bunnie Xo was seeing something else entirely. She stepped into a role that no one required her to take on. When she became part of Jelly Roll's life, she also became part of his family, and that included his daughter, Bailey. That relationship did not form overnight. It required patience. It required emotional investment. It required showing up consistently, even during the uncomfortable moments, the adjustments, and the days when progress was invisible. But Bunnie leaned into it. She helped create stability during a period when Jelly Roll's family was navigating real emotional challenges. She stood beside him not just as a romantic partner, but as someone who genuinely cared about his children's well-being. And over time, something real grew between her and Bailey. Something that went beyond titles and labels and formal definitions of family. Jelly Roll has spoken about this publicly more than once. He has praised Bunnie openly for the love she showed his daughter and for the sacrifices she made for a responsibility she never had to accept. He has made it clear that she helped hold his family together during seasons that were genuinely difficult. But behind the public praise was something more private. Bunnie was also witnessing the parts of Jelly Roll that never made it into interviews. She watched him navigate the weight of fatherhood alongside sudden fame. She saw the pressure that came with trying to be better than he had been before while the whole world was watching his every move. She saw him carry emotional burdens that did not disappear just because the shows were selling out or the songs were charting. She described him, in private moments, as someone carrying a heavy load. Someone who smiled in front of cameras while processing things that most people never knew existed. And she sat with that reality in a way that only someone truly close to a person can. There was also the IVF journey, a deeply private, emotionally exhausting process that tested them in ways that had nothing to do with music or public image. There was patience and hope and disappointment, all woven together over a period of time that left its mark on both of them. They shared glimpses of it publicly at certain points, but even those glimpses were only fragments of what they actually lived through together. Then came the announcement that no one saw coming, even though, in hindsight, the pressure had been building for a long time. After nearly 10 years together, Bunnie Xo and Jelly Roll announced their separation. For people who had followed their story from the beginning, the news landed hard. They had seemed like one of the genuinely solid ones. A couple that had actually built something together through struggle rather than around it. And now it was over. The internet responded the way it always does. Speculation flooded in from every direction. Rumors spread faster than facts. People began constructing narratives about what must have gone wrong, who must be at fault, what must have been said or done behind closed doors. But both Bunnie and Jelly Roll pushed back against the noise, quietly and firmly. They denied rumors of infidelity directly. They refused to turn their pain into public entertainment. They did not attack each other. They did not leak things or go on social media to position themselves as victims or villains. What they chose instead was something that felt unusual in a world that constantly rewards oversharing, restraint, dignity, the choice to protect what was private, even when everything else was being discussed publicly. Even in the middle of separation, they spoke about each other with care. They referred to each other as best friends. And while some people read that as performance, anyone paying close attention could see that they genuinely meant it. Bunnie later opened up about what she believed had placed the heaviest strain on the marriage. It was not one single moment or betrayal. It was the accumulation of things. The emotional weight of the IVF journey. The demands of their individual careers growing simultaneously. The pressure of public life pressing constantly on something that was supposed to be private. Things that are hard to carry alone become harder to carry together when there is no space to breathe. Jelly Roll spoke about it honestly too. He acknowledged that Bunnie would always hold a place in his life that nothing could erase. Not separation, not time, not whatever came next for either of them. There was no clean conclusion to hand people. No single explanation that made everything make sense. Just two real people who had been through an extraordinary amount together, choosing to honor what they had built by not destroying it on the way out. But the hardest part of the story was not about the two of them. It was about Bailey. As the separation unfolded, the impact moved through the entire family. Bailey was not watching events from a distance. She was inside them, trying to process changes that were confusing and painful for someone her age, changes that the adults around her could barely make sense of themselves. Bunnie did not stay quiet about this. She spoke openly about how much Bailey was carrying. She defended her from online commentary, reminding people that behind every headline were human beings with real feelings who had not signed up to become public figures. That a young girl working through a painful family transition deserved privacy and protection, not opinions from strangers on the internet. And through everything, Bunnie's connection to Bailey did not dissolve. She made it clear that her love for her stepdaughter was never conditional on the status of her marriage. The relationship between an adult and a child is not something that should get caught in the crossfire of adult decisions. And Bunnie seemed to understand that in a way that went beyond what most people in that situation are able to hold on to. She kept showing up, She kept offering whatever stability and presence she could, even as everything else was shifting. Because for her, family was never just a legal arrangement. It was something she had chosen, and she was not prepared to unchoose it simply because the circumstances had changed. So what is the actual story that Bunnie Xo has been trying to tell? It is not a story about drama or scandal or the collapse of a celebrity marriage. Those are the frames that people reach for because they are easy and familiar. But the real story is something quieter and more difficult to hold. It is the story of a woman who saw a man before the world had decided who he was, who believed in something she could not yet prove, who offered stability when stability was rare, who stepped into a family without being required to, who held space for the difficult and invisible parts of a person's life while the public only saw the highlights. It is the story of how fame does not complete a person. It adds pressure and visibility, but it does not fill in the gaps. And the gaps in Jelly Roll's story, the parts that the music videos and award shows never showed, were the parts that Bunnie through her eyes. Jelly Roll is not a public figure shaped by success. He is someone she watched struggle long before struggle became part of his brand. He is a father who worked hard to repair things, a husband who loved imperfectly but genuinely, a friend who remained important even when the marriage could not. The version of him that the world celebrates is real, but it is a fragment. The fuller picture includes the quiet moments, the difficult ones, the ones no camera captured, the ones that only the people closest to him were ever allowed to see. That is the version Bunnie Xo has always known, and maybe that is the most honest thing she has ever said about him. So after everything, what do you think? Could they have found a way through it, or were the pressures simply too much in the end? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you or made you see things differently, make sure you like this video and subscribe so you never miss what we cover next.